How you doing today? Happy Hump Day, Wednesday.
There's no middle of the week when you're self-employed, but
Yeah,
we are halfway to the point where everybody's writing offers again. I find that most people are writing on Fridays, and
yeah.
I think it's all the value of you should write your offer on a Thursday because first sometimes leads to best.
Hey, the first one to the plate, and I always say this, right, Keaton? The first one to the plate has the best chance to negotiate. If you wait till everybody else writes first, your negotiation's gone.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
So we've got clients writing subject free in Alberta. I'm regularly getting grilled by realtors to try to trim condition dates as tight as possible.
Yeah.
I really wanted to have you on here and take some of your experience to what can a buyer do
Mm-hmm.
to present a better offer, and what can a seller know to maybe tell the difference between an offer pretending to be competitive
Yep.
and an offer that maybe just has a client that doesn't have a realtor who's as savvy and maybe doesn't know how to make the offer look better to trim the fat, but really they're the same.
Yeah.
So maybe let's just dive into it. Like what do you think a purchasing or buying agent should be advising their client when they're ready to present an offer?
Absolutely. And I love this topic because everybody has their own negotiation tactics, right? And there's no secret negotiations. If you're good at it, you're good at it. If you're not, you need to practice. Like there's definitely some tips and tricks that you can learn as a professional. But at the end of the day, Keaton, I guess, I would like to start the idea of how to write a good offer being a couple of steps prior to that. And that's this. Let me pose a question to you. You're a consumer. You're saying, Chris, I want to buy the best house, the best price. The first thing I'm going to ask you is, great. Are you pre-approved? Because at the end of the day, that's one of the biggest steps you can accomplish is a pre-approval in place. And I present it to my clients this way. We're going to go look for a home. Pretend you're the seller. Put yourself in the seller's position. You get an offer with a condition of financing. You get obviously an offer saying, well, our financing's pre-approved. We've got our down payment ready. We've got our credit bureaus checked. We've got everything good. And we've got, hey, a 90-day possession. So we don't need the clause because we know the lender will pull it off. A 3-week possession, maybe not that case. So give yourself enough time there. But let me ask you this. As a seller, would you take an offer with a condition of financing for 5 days or for 15 days? Which one would look better to you?
I think I would prefer 5 days because I would know sooner if someone's buying my house.
That's right. So at the end of the day, when you're looking at it, maybe you can't write unconditional, maybe you can, but making that, hey, can we trim that date as soon as possible? Good. But now let me say, okay, we've got a pre-approval, but at the same time, like you said, we can't do this in 48 hours. Sometimes we need a couple of days. And realtors like myself calling you saying, please, 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 can you do this in 3 days or 4 days? The first thing I'm going to ask you is, can you please, Keaton, send me a letter that says this? Here's the address of the property we're writing an offer on. Can you please put my client's name and that for this address, they are pre-approved for the financing to purchase this home at the offer price? That's
It's
simple.
funny. We actually provide letters that are dated the day of the offer,
Mm-hmm.
usually with the purchase price in the number it's pre-approved for to show we reviewed it. We include the address of the property. I've actually had realtors get annoyed at me
Mm-hmm.
because when they write offers, oh, now they have to ask for a letter every time.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, guys, are you serious? You just want some flimsy piece of paper that says, I, mortgage broker, say client is good, dated 6 weeks ago? Like, if I was a seller, I'm going to prefer the one dated that day with my home's address on it.
That's right.
And
So
ideally, the purchase price is the number that says is what's pre-approved.
yeah, exactly. So now you've just hit the nail on the head on how we're working together to say, hey, whether there's a condition or no condition, preparation and getting that pre-approval done is the first step because that's really what you're dealing with. You're dealing with yourself as a buyer. The last thing you want to do is say, well, I don't know if I can afford this. How can I write a competitive offer? Well, first of all, you shouldn't be. Okay. But that's the second step. So then the second step of the actual process now is education, Keaton. I think a lot of people forget that when you're writing a competitive offer, you need to know that house is the best house for you because you've actually done your homework. You've seen enough houses below your comfort zone, above your comfort zone, both condition and price and location. Because what I find most often is when my clients write offers, they're not like, oh, I don't know if this is a good idea. They're like, Chris, this is the house. What do we got to do to make this happen?
So you're telling me you got to date a little before you get married.
You got to date a little before you get married. And I think there's a lot of people, if I could really give one piece of advice right now on writing a good offer with buyers, please get a realtor. Please, I don't care who it is. It doesn't have to be me and my team. You have a realtor to show you homes. It's hilarious and unfortunate to me when people call me and say, I'm just calling the listing agent and I just want to see this house. Well, first off, if you love the house, how do I know you love the house? I have no idea what you're looking for. Okay. Now I'm going to come across as a sales guy. And then all of a sudden, now there's another offer. Well, now what do you do? Now you got to go figure out who's going to represent you. Now you got to figure out, how do I write a good offer? Well, you've never met me. So the last thing I want to do is tell you how to write an offer with no conditions when I've never met you before. So hiring a realtor and viewing properties to get educated, significant different situation now. Because now when I go to present that offer, I can share that verbal information. My clients are educated. They're pre-approved. Here's what we're going to do for details now. And now we're actually getting into the offer negotiations.
So let me
So
ask you, how important do you think it is as a purchasing agent to communicate with the listing and ask about dates, terms, preferences?
mhm.
You know, hey, we will schedule the inspection on a Tuesday, whatever it may be, because I know sellers can be quirky and they've got their lives and they've got their preferences. And so is it overrated, underrated? Is it critical?
I think it's critical to have all those details up front. Basically, when it comes down to it, the more detail you give, the less ambiguity there is, the less question. So, to give you an example, just looking at an offer that I received this week, I had a buyer agent write an offer for my client the day that they saw the house. They ended up being in a competing situation, but at the end of the day, this is what he said: Chris, we want 4 days. Financing's good. We're just going to put on 4 days conditions just to give the checkbox. And guess what? We're going to do the home inspection tomorrow. Okay, great. Oh, and then he says, guess what, Chris? My client is okay with whatever possession your clients want. Okay, great. So now let me flip that around. What did that do for my seller? Well, they're organized. They have a deposit ready. They don't care when possession is. They want to accommodate my seller. And now they're saying they only need a couple of days. They're really, really ready to make this happen. We just got to figure out if you like the price. Like, let's face it, that's what it comes down to. So you're not obligated to proceed with something as a seller if you don't like the offer, but boy, do those other things matter a lot. Give you one example that I had a few weeks ago when I was writing an offer with a client. There were actually 5 offers on the property, higher price point. Thankfully, of course, you wrote a nice little letter saying they're pre-qualified for these clients. And here's the funny thing. The realtor actually called me back and said, Chris, you guys wrote a phenomenal offer, but here's the challenge. Yours isn't the highest price. I said, well, that doesn't sound like a challenge to me because I think everything else is good or you wouldn't be calling me. So this is great. And she said, well, here's the deal. My clients really like your offer. You said you're going to do the home inspection on this date. You gave us a large deposit. You've actually taken a photocopy of the check and presented that as part of the offer package. You've said possession is flexible. Whatever the seller wants, we can put in. We actually put in there as a term, the seller can select a possession date between this date and that date. Irregardless, it's comfortable for the buyer. So we didn't actually write a date in. We wrote a term in that showed the seller they get to pick the date, right? So it wasn't left blank. It was like, this is what we'd like to work with. So then they come back and say, okay, well, we like your inspection. We like your terms. We like your deposit. We like the possession. This is all fantastic. But we really want to know if we can get that price up. And so here's what I did in a leverageable situation like this. I said, first off, we didn't lose the house because my clients didn't write the highest offer. But guess what? The realtor called me. And the realtor said, well, my sellers may not like your price, but I'm calling you because they don't really want to take the other offer. I was like, well, that's 2 things. Well, obviously that other higher price might seem fishy. Why else would they be calling us? If the other price is higher, just take it. No, there's something about that other offer that didn't really sit quite right.
Mm-hmm.
So then she calls me back and she says, okay, here's what they'd like to counter the price to a higher price. Well, now my clients were already over list price. They had all the best terms. They said, Chris, this is great. If we can't have the house for this package, we're okay with them not moving forward. But here's the deal. It's our best foot forward. Clearly, if they like our offer, this is going to go through. So having said that, they quickly came back and said, well, they want a higher price. So I had the opportunity to go back to my client and say this. You guys said it was your final offer. I'm totally okay with it. Here's the thing. You now get to be in control of this decision. Do you want to work with the price they're giving you? Do you want to counter with the price they're giving you? Or do you want to say, no, thanks, we're done. Thank you for the opportunity. But our control in the situation is we're choosing to not buy the house. I loved it. That was music to my ears to be in a competition and to know my clients actually were in control of the situation.
It's amazing. It's
Mm,
because I think that's the challenge if you have newer agents or agents that are too busy or whatever it may be.
hmm
You may have two houses side by side for sale, and one house may want to close in 2 weeks if they can. They want the check as fast as possible.
Yeah.
The other may need to go find a home to buy and live in and plan their move, and they might
hmm
want a closing date as long as possible. And if you don't take the time to call and ask and you just guess, the worst case, you pick the safe number. Let's give them 60 days.
Yeah.
That's safe. You're
Yeah.
the worst of both worlds. The short close person doesn't want it, the long close person doesn't want it.
Yeah.
Whereas if you spend the 45 seconds to pick up the phone and
hmm
ask,
hmm
any good listing agent worth working with is going to know what their clients want.
Yeah.
It's a 10-second, yeah, they prefer a quick close, a long close. They don't care.
Yeah.
But then you can start to tailor your offer. And I'm a believer of good faith business.
hmm
When I'm a seller and I get an offer that says I get to pick the closing date, they will do the inspection on Monday ASAP unless I prefer Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yeah.
The more things they do, even if they mean nothing, just to try to accommodate me,
hmm
the more in a competitive situation I go, oh, I like the Joneses. They gave me choice. They actually tried to figure out what I want. Everybody else just made an assertion.
Yeah.
Well, the Joneses are the worst of all worlds, but they seem like good people. And I'm going to gravitate towards trying to work with good people as much as possible. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but at least it means you open the dialogue.
Yeah.
But one of the things I wanted to touch on is when you write that offer and you put your conditions in,
hmm
I know that when you go through school as a realtor, you are taught that you should condition everything, including what if the moon hits the sun
hmm
and then some, you know, what if the eighth day of the plague begins? Like whatever it is, you're taught to put everything in. What
Together.
is your opinion of an offer that's conditional on inspection, on
hmm
title review, on financing, on mother-in-law viewing the color of the paint, on appraisal, versus conditional on satisfactory inspection? Or pick your poison, but a single strong condition versus multiple weak conditions. Like what do you think about that?
Absolutely. Carte blanche, at the end of the day, one condition is enough to break a deal. You don't need seven, bottom line. So when you have one condition, that means that deal is not as 100% guaranteed as the seller would like. So why put six or seven or four or five? Like at the end of the day, one is all you need. The question is just being upfront, transparent, and just letting them know, like, hey, my clients would like to proceed with this purchase. We put such a good offer together. It's subject to financing or subject to home inspection. If you just wanted one or the other, both of them are, easy enough to say this isn't going to work. Because think about this, we're taught not to disclose our clients' motivation. You're not doing that when you're good at negotiations. You're not disclosing your client's motivation, which in fact you're telling the seller is, my clients are happy with all these things. We haven't told them anything. I'm not saying my clients are happy to move forward with at whatever possession you want. They're saying, hey, the term says you can pick it between this date and this date, and we're happy with that. Well, that might be a 60-day window, but at the end of the day, you're not disclosing what your seller or buyer, what your buyer's information is. You're simply saying my buyer would be happy with any of these items. So that's a good key thing, is teaching people that it's not about disclosing your personal effects and details that put you at a disadvantage. In fact, it's communicating with the seller that you would like to find a way to put this deal together, and under these terms or similar, we're good there. So then, side note really briefly here, if you have one condition that is solid, it's subject to home inspection, and that's it. The home inspection is you haven't found anything major. But you know what? If you found accumulation of a lot of little details, that could be a situation where, like, these are first time buyers. All these little details don't sound like much, but for my first time buyers, this is just overwhelming. They would prefer to buy new construction. And now we've identified that because this house is 50 years old.
Well, I imagine even if nothing's defective, an inspection could ultimately lead to you're not happy with the quality of the property.
Correct. Because guess
Nothing's
what?
broken, but you don't like laminate.
Yeah. Yeah. And in that situation, you're like, okay, well, the quality of the property. Well, most people don't do a home inspection before an offer. So at the end of the day, you see a house for 15 minutes. Maybe in a good market, you got a chance to go back for a second showing. Now you get to go spend 30 minutes in the house when you're not looking at a bunch of other houses back to back. You're just focusing on that one or two that you like. you're still not a professional. The realtor's still not liable and wants to give you advice. Yes, this is good, this is bad. You're simply taking a closer look. And the reality is a home inspection is a 2 to 3 hour timeline where they check every outlet, every baseboard, and every water and electrical. So, I mean, at the end of the day, every item that's on the house is going to be scrutinized. So that's why it's there for you to say, this is definitely something we don't want to proceed, or now we're going to renegotiate because this is more than we're comfortable with. So
Well,
there's nothing illegitimate or wrong about that. It is the process.
so in my experience, most sellers are inexperienced sellers. Like most people don't sell 30 houses in their life. Like you
Yeah.
get your sophisticated investors, you get your cool, calm business people, but that's not most people. The majority of houses are owner occupied. The majority of sellers are selling for either they want to move their family into bigger, better things, which case they're obviously anxious to do this, or maybe there's financial distress or an emergency or they're moving, but there's always anxiety associated to it. And they know their home really well and they probably love it, but they also know the warts. And
Yeah.
when your offer has 7 different conditions, you're probably more likely to hit a nerve where,
Mm-hmm.
maybe they're worried about the value. Appraisal scary. Maybe they read all the guidelines about mortgages are hard to get these days. Financing scary. Maybe they're worried about the quality of
That's,
their pool. So
yeah.
having a pool inspection condition in there on top of the house inspection might freak them out.
Or a
So
sewer inspection is another common one that's not common under inspection.
but it can you're more likely to hit a nerve. So I think trimming it down is great, but I think we should have the flip side of this conversation too, which is if you're a seller
Mm-hmm.
and assuming your realtor's done due diligence, you're working with realtors that are well known in the community on the buy side, and there's a degree of trust. If you get 2 offers and one is conditional on inspection and that's it, and the other has 7 conditions, clearly it's a slightly nervous buyer.
That's right.
Would you say that inherently the single condition is a stronger offer than the 7 conditions, or do we know realistically that it's just they've just wrapped it a little nicer? But we know statistically, odds are they're getting financing, they're appraising the property, they're still going to do everything they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that a seller should look at those offers in an objective stance as likely being somewhat equal?
Yeah, I think what you said though is probably a dominating factor, and that is the experience. It's experience for a first time buyer to say, I want to make sure mom and dad told me to have all these conditions because this is protecting me. And we don't care if you think one condition is protecting us the same way. We don't see that that's written. That makes us nervous. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes with the seller, even though these both offers are equal in many ways, and we can say they're both equally possible to cancel the deal, there is, a comfort in a seller's mind to say this person has more experience. If we're happy with the offer, there's less chance of this getting, cold feet.
So, how important do you think as a seller
Mm-hmm.
is understanding who the buyer is and their motivation?
I think the only time that's important is if you are being totally disclosed, you're selling a family home of 50 years. At the end of the day, when you have somebody say, this is original owner 1964, and they are advertising that, this is realtor lingo. This family wants a family to buy their house.
But would you not agree that there's based on the property, let's say that you've got a school across the road from you and it is a very family friendly home.
Yep.
I personally at least would probably be biased if I knew who the
Mhm.
buyers were. Let's say they came in and I was there and I was
Right.
pretending to be another buyer and I just observed.
Yep.
And I see the family with 2 young kids wrote the offer, and I know the elementary school's there and all that stuff. And I
Mhm.
saw them excited. And then there's the dinks, the double income, no kids. They're in their 50s.
Yeah.
Personally, I'd probably be biased to accept given equal offers to the family, as I think they're going to have more emotional ties to the property.
Yep.
Um, and I know it's a little different with each, but personally, that's why I'm a really strong believer that if
Mhm.
you can present your offer with a letter that says who you are, why
Yep.
you want to buy,
Yep.
why their home is right for you, you're giving them reasons to accept your offer and
Yeah.
reasons to bet on you
Yeah.
versus that anonymous offer that they can just see a name and that's it.
Absolutely. And to take that a step further, Keaton, when I am shopping with a family that really wants to buy their forever home, I've taken it a step further and done a little 30-second YouTube video. And I've actually sent it over via text message to the agent and presented a client presentation on video as well as the offer on paper. Yeah, using technology to our advantage.
And I have to imagine scale, you've
Mhm.
got cute kids and a dog, and
Mhm.
you're relatively well spoken. If I'm looking at two offers and one is the letter with a cute photo and the other's the video with the kids playing and the hi Keaton, my name's John and this is my wife Sarah. I love your home. I really, really want it to be mine, and I really hope that you take the
Mhm.
time and put faith in us that we can be the next owners of your home. We
Yeah.
really, really would love to live there.
Yeah.
God damn it, you're taking that offer.
Yeah.
There's no way. There's
Yeah.
no way you're going with the third offer that's $3,000 more. That's
Mhm.
John Doe.
Yeah.
Like you're going with the letter, or more likely you're going with the video.
Yeah.
Or at
Absolutely.
least you're going to look for every reason to.
Yeah. And I think you just the final thing I think I want to share with you, Keaton, I think a lot of new, younger realtors, but also some older, close to retirement realtors also forget is the personal touch. The digital age has really removed a lot of our personal ability to communicate. And I think one of the most successful things, tips and tricks that I've done during negotiations is to offer to be as personal as possible, being that, hey, I am still happy to let you know if you have any questions. We're sitting here waiting to discuss the offer questions you have. We are not preoccupied going anywhere else. Please let us know as soon as we have an understanding as to what we're doing. Instead of, hey, I just got an emailed offer from somebody 2 days ago. They didn't tell me I was getting an offer. They didn't text me I was getting an offer. I just opened up my email and there's an offer sitting there. Like, your agent has to go the extra mile and tell the other agent how much you want this house. And you can do that without disclosing motivation, but you can just, this is what you're asking. We want representation. We want your client to know, your client wants your realtor to know this is important to you. Please don't just send an email.
You don't
Right?
sell the steak, you sell the sizzle. And I think this is
Yeah.
why a good realtor who works for you
Mhm.
is so different than a realtor who doesn't. It's all these little details that are hard to find. And I'll actually share one of the most effective tricks that I saw a client, an investor actually of all people, use out east. They wrote their offers with a non-refundable deposit added in, and it was
Okay.
a box of homemade cookies made by their mom. And
I
every
love
offer
it.
they put in, it was a total low ball grease offer, but it had a little
Yeah.
box of homemade cookies.
Yeah.
And they said that when they really want an offer, they put the recipe in the tin. And it was just one of those little, but it's
Yeah.
weird in a good way.
Yeah.
And it gets that little bit, it gives people that excuse to want to take your offer. Oh, really? Meanwhile, the husband's like, he's busy, like, hi, cookies. And he's shoving cookies. And what was the offer for again? And he's distracted when he hears 375 and he wants 425.
Hmm.
He's in a good mood. He's eating cookies. He's not hungry.
Yeah.
375. Well, I know we want more than that. But you versus they get an offer, they hear a number. Nope, done, closed.
Yep. And that's very often what happens when you receive an email offer with no explanation, no heads up, no determination. And I've gotten offers that were much less than the average offer on the table because my clients said, Chris, it's not about price. We just want to make sure we have this other info. And the seller's reply has been, it's not about price. We want to know who's taken over our home. It's not always the case, but when that is the case, man, does it ever go a long way to bring back the humanity to the negotiation.
Well,
Mhm.
and I find often the longer someone's owned a property, the less sensitive to price they may be,
Mhm.
um, as they've made their money, they've paid off their mortgage. They're usually in a less desperate situation to get their top dollar because it matters less to their future.
Mhm.
It's not the difference of life or death. Roland, yes, actually, this session will be recorded, and I will give Chris a copy and we'll post it. So hopefully everybody's enjoying this and we'll get some
Mhm.
value out of it. It also lives on Facebook for quite a while, if not forever, as being alive.
Mhm.
Um, but I really appreciate you coming out, Chris. The last thing I want to touch on, because I don't know
Yeah.
the answer. I've done this for 8 years and I've heard conflicting things.
Okay.
Can you demand that your offer is presented in person?
Demand is an interesting word. Yes.
Or can
So
you
here,
request?
yeah. Yeah. So no, I like the word demand. So it's an interesting word because my obligation is to ensure that the offer's been presented. And the offer ability to present in person has definitely changed over the years and immediately changed when COVID hit. Now it's become the norm to say that's not necessary. Don't waste my time. At the end of the day, you just have to choose the best way to present it. And my little video presentation has allowed me to bypass somebody saying, hey, you know what, Chris? we're not really doing any offers in person right now for this reason or that reason, but please send me it whatever you can. I will then personally do a video for 20 seconds of the summary of the offer of myself presenting the information so the other agent doesn't have to. I simply send the email and say, please play this for your client.
Well, and I love that in these more competitive markets, we have to get creative. I've even had clients get their agent to go to the listing agent and say, hey, clients really want your home. They want to present an offer, but they would like to be at the house with myself as the buying agent. And we would like to actually discuss this. And essentially asking, can we have a real in-time negotiation in person where everybody goes in the room, the offer is presented. Almost like lawyers on the other side of a room. They're, give us 2 minutes. They go back, they come back, they put another piece of paper. But to show commitment and seriousness, and it doesn't work in every scenario. Not every seller or buyer is going to be comfortable with it.
Yeah.
But if they do agree, you can imagine the odds of a successful negotiation in that situation is drastically higher than lobbying emails back and forth over a multiple day window.
Yeah.
It's a good faith. We're here. Let's get this done, or let's close the book knowing it's not going to work.
100%. And in all honesty, I found more deals don't come together when the agent is just simply texting back and forth and they don't pick up the phone to even call. Even just a simple phone call and having a conversation about, hey, this is what we're trying to do. This is my client's rationale. This is where they're coming from. See what your seller is willing to do goes miles farther than a text. Nope, doesn't work. How about this instead? It's too blank. Yeah.
What's the problem? You're at the mercy of if you're a buyer, you're at the mercy of the listing agent. And if they're busy and they're a very successful realtor, they might have 20 listings on the go. And your offer might be presented as a text. ... Hey, Chris, we got 303. Probably too low, eh? Well, the seller, too low. They don't know. There's no negotiation there. It's just a flat no back.
Yeah.
Whereas,
not enough context.
And a really motivated realtor might call their clients, hey, we got one for 303. But remember, that's not the price. That's the initial offer. So we know we want to be at 345, but obviously we have to give a little, and then the magic starts to happen. And it's just, I think it's important understanding that this is how the process actually works. It's not a perfect system. It has flaws in the sense that it's human beings on both sides, but being aware as a buyer and being aware as a seller helps increase the odds. Because the flip side is you get that 303 offer, you're the seller. If you just say absolutely not, maybe they would have come up to 338 and you're happy at 335.
Yeah.
But if you just say absolutely not,
yep,
you're never going to get there. So you have to invest time and energy into this to try to get the best outcome.
Yeah.
But so many people lose sight of it, or they make assumptions of what the market should be, how it should operate. Yeah. And I think the best thing you can do as a buyer or seller is work with someone who's going to take the time to educate you on this so you can navigate this well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And there's a lot of gold in this conversation, Keaton. I'm just thinking about all the things we've gone over. And at the end of the day, none of these things can, replace, really a good experience in the field and how to manage these. But I think, it all comes down to two things. Working with somebody is not throwing information at them and seeing if it sticks. There's got to be a back and forth, and having professionals to be able to communicate well, not disclosing things that shouldn't be disclosed, but trying to find a way to make a deal. At the end of the day, real estate 101, a buyer will pay what they're comfortable paying and not $1 more. A seller will accept not $1 less than what they're comfortable accepting. But it's amazing how much that gets foggy when people remember there's a person on the other side.
100%. And I think I'll end with this because it's important for everybody to really drive this home. And that is, buying and selling involves people. And when you choose the professionals you work with, you have to find good people. Because if someone's ultra successful, but they're an abrasive douchebag, is a nice word to call it, and they're blitzing a bully offer in on the buyer side, and the listing agents, oh no, not this guy or girl again, you're already off on the wrong foot. Whereas someone who's a good person and takes the time to ask the listener, how's your day going? Yeah, I saw you a few weeks back on Sunnyside. Yeah, I hope you're doing well. Glad to see you got another listing. You're really crushing it. That 30 seconds of chit chat moves the needle that all of a sudden that listing agent's excited to work with this person and they're going to champion the deal their best. Yeah. Whereas if it's Buddy in his Lamborghini who's like, hey, here's the offer. Yeah, you guys better take it. We're not moving $1 more. Yeah, have a good beep. The listing agent is like, F you.
Totally. And just one little funny story, but just historically speaking, it's funny when you get a client that appreciates who you are too. And one of the clients that I've had over the years, repeat over and over, investment, personal, we've added it up. We've done over 30 transactions together. And one of the things he said to me is, Chris, the first day I met you, the one thing I thought, this guy's too nice to make it in this industry. This is the first thing he says to me. Now, moving forward, after all these years of experience, he said, it's funny how that was my first impression of you. And he said, the first time we sold a property together, I was really wondering how much that was going to affect the result. And he says, it's funny though, because when I think back of it, and of course, he never shared this with me until even recently. He said, when I look back, he's like, no, when we had a situation come up on the sale that the buyers were trying to renegotiate some terms and you weren't having it, and you were just a pit bull, but the deal stuck and they followed through and bought the house anyway. He's like, nope, this nice guy has a little bit of pit bull in him.
Always a pleasure, man. Thank you for
Yeah.
the laughs. And we've gone way over on time. So I want to thank you and look forward to doing this again next week.
Absolutely. Have a great day and go sell some houses this weekend. Help some clients.
I don't sell. I sell nothing. I'm a mortgage broker. I'm not like you dirty
You
sales.
sell interest rates. That's
I
even
don't
better.
sell nothing. You want a home. You've made that decision. I am simply here to show the ways you can do it. But I educate my clients, Chris. Come on. I'm not a sales.
Absolutely.
Have a good one, buddy.
Take care.